All right, so we're done with the cerebrum, and those are pretty much everything we went through so far as part of the cerebrum, one of the four main parts of the brain. Well, a second of the four main parts of the brain is the diencephalon. Encephalon is brain. Di means two parts, so two parts of the brain, diencephalon. We have a thalamus here in kind of greenish color, then in orange we have a hypothalamus. So this is deep in the brain. Thalamus and hypothalamus together, they make up the diencephalon. Your thalamus, look where it's located, very centrally located. So all your sensations coming from all different parts of the body, like from vision, all the somatosensations like touch, pressure, pain, let's say hearing, vision, right? All your sensory information goes through the thalamus. So the thalamus takes all of these action potentials, right? All of these messages and relays them to the specific part of the brain for processing. So sorts, processes, and relays sensory information to all parts of the cerebrum. For example, here's something, a sensation, let's say just coming in from your right thumb. So it's going to send it to that somatosensory area in the parietal lobe. Here's sensation coming in, a sense, say it's vision coming from your eyes. Well, it's going to relay it to the occipital lobe because that's where vision occurs. Let's say from your ears, hearing. Well, your thalamus is going to relate it to your temporal lobe. Temporal lobe is, remember, hearing, and olfactory, which is smell. So all of your sensory information goes through your thalamus except olfactory. Right, so there's your exception. Olfactory is the only sense in your body that does not travel through the thalamus to get sorted. It will go directly to the temporal lobe. The hypothalamus, which you see here in orange, looks real small but has a lot of responsibility. It regulates homeostasis. Remember what that means? A steady state in the body by controlling the autonomic nervous system. And that's the part of your nervous system that we saw we defined last chapter. That's your involuntary nervous system going to is a motor going to smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and glands. So we're not aware of a lot of this stuff going on, right? Autonomic nervous system. Your endocrine system is your hormones and glands that produce hormones, and temperature control. So ANS, endocrine system, temperature control, that helps regulate homeostasis in the body. That's controlled by the hypothalamus. You might notice the pituitary gland that hangs down from it. Well, your pituitary gland is your master gland. Your master gland controls other glands in your body, but it's your hypothalamus that controls your endocrine system, your pituitary gland, which is your master gland. Yeah, your diencephalon also includes an epithalamus, which is not labeled here. You'll see this little light-colored bead right there. That's the epithalamus, another name for your pineal gland. And that's a gland that produces a hormone, melatonin, which controls your sleep-wake cycle. Now we're on to the third part of the brain. We covered the cerebrum and all its parts. We covered the diencephalon and its parts, the thalamus and hypothalamus. Now we're in the third main region of the brain. Sorry, I went too far, just the screen part here. That's called the brainstem. And the brainstem is made up of three parts that you should know. In order to here, most superior portion right there is the midbrain. In the middle, the fatter area, is the pons. And then right before you get to the spinal cord, it gets thin again. That's the medulla oblongata, often referred to just as the medulla, and you can see them labeled right here. So we need to go through each of the three and designate a function for each. All right, when we get to the midbrain, here we are at the most superior portion of the brainstem. It's going to have some functions, but really it's mainly a pass-through area of neurons just passing through. So you can see almost hard to see. There's two little bumps here that are not that clear, a superior colliculus and an inferior colliculus. Well, the superior is a relay for visual information, right, coming in from the eyes, right, and then toward the occipital lobe, a relay center for visual, where the inferior colliculus, which is just underneath it, relays auditory information, so coming from the ears or sound. So not a whole lot of function for the midbrain that we need to know, but there's your two functions that you should match with midbrain. The pons, which is the middle portion of the brainstem, it says helps maintain a normal rhythm of breathing. So it's not the primary part of the brain that controls your breathing, but it just aids in that process. So it helps out your breathing rate. Where the medulla oblongata, just labeled medulla here, is the inferior portion of the brainstem, well, that's where your breathing is controlled primarily. So this is your respiratory center. It just helps you keep a normal rate of breathing, but also it's your cardiovascular center. So let's take the cardio part of it first. The cardiac center, well, it controls your heart rate. And the vascular part, your vasomotor center, adjusts your blood vessels. Your blood vessels can contract or they can dilate for blood pressure regulation. So yeah, this is a very important part of the brain, the medulla, for your breathing, your respiratory center, and for your heart and blood vessels, your cardiovascular center, medulla. And the final portion of the brain, part of the brain, we covered the cerebellum, we covered the diencephalon, we covered the brainstem, which is the midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Well, finally, we have a cerebellum. Here it is right here. Cerebellum, you can read through what I have in bold here, but I guess this last sentence is probably the best. It calculates the best way to smoothly coordinate muscle contraction. So your cerebellum is constantly receiving information from all your receptors in your muscles and tendons. It's aware of your body position, so it calculates the best way to coordinate any type of movement that you perform. So that's your cerebellum. Now, if we look at a cross-section of the cerebellum or look at the inside, it has white matter, and it's kind of arranged almost like a tree, right? It almost looks like a tree, and that's called the arbor vitae. The arbor vitae is this tree-like pattern that's the inner, or the white matter, the myelinated matter, inside the cerebellum. The little bumps, which we call gyri in the cerebrum, are called folia on the cerebellum. Folia means leaves. Looks like the leaves on the tree, I guess, on the arbor vitae. Arbor vitae means tree of life. Actually, it's supposed to be pronounced arbor vitae. I said arbor vitae before, but regardless, that's the cerebellum. And what I didn't mention earlier is that your cerebrum, right, which we don't see pictured here, if this is the brainstem, your cerebrum with all your lobes would be way up here. It has a left and right hemisphere. So the left hemisphere controls the right side of the body. The right hemisphere controls the left side of the body. So that's called contralateral control, opposite side control. That's the cerebrum, but the cerebellum controls the same side of the body. So the left side of the cerebellum controls left, right side of the cerebellum controls right. So it has ipsilateral control. You'll see that word on the previous slide. Ipsilateral, same side control, where the cerebrum, which we don't see here, is contralateral control. The cerebellum is ipsilateral control, same side of the body control.